This is Matthew McConaughey.
Natalie Portman.
James Patterson,
Michael Ian Black,
And you are listening to
Five questions.
with Dan Schawbel.
Jana, welcome to Five Questions.
Hey, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
What led to both your career as an actor and singer?
Oh man, for me, it was just something I always wanted to do. I mean, I remember at a very young age, I was on stage, I was doing the Romeo Peach pageant as a kid in Michigan. I was 5, 6 years old, singing Twinkle Twinkle in a rock version and making my own twist on it. And I had my hair all like, uh, curled and stars and stuff. And then I always wanted to just be I wanted to entertain. I wanted to be in front of a camera. For me living in Michigan, I was like, all right, I want to dream big, right? So I was like, I gotta move to Los Angeles. So right when I graduated high school, I moved to LA, and I just said that was what it was going to be, and I didn't want to have a fallback plan because I knew what I wanted to do, and I am a big believer in go chase it and don't live with regrets.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have a lot of conviction to do that because you're leaving your friends and family and exploring something new, and that takes courage. Even if you have a lot of confidence, it still takes courage.
It does, but I also I'm the kind of person I just never want to live with an ounce of regret. And so I know that I would have beat myself up if I didn't try. And that's kind of been the storyline of my life, my tagline, live with, do something until that you tried everything that you could. And especially, with my book, that would talk a lot about that.
Definitely. And I think that is the right attitude and mindset to have because otherwise you don't know what you're capable of and you don't know what's possible. Because, I always tell people it's like that 70th email could actually lead to something you just don't know, or those 30 people you performed in, as a performer, one of those people could sign you. You just don't know how that will all play out.
Exactly.
How were you able to come to terms with your divorce? And what were some of the biggest struggles you had to try and move into this new life?
I mean, coming to terms was one of the hardest pieces because for a long time, I'm like, how do I know when it's time to leave? And I think that's the number one question that I get asked all the time. Like, how did you know? And for me, it was, I had to try everything. Like I just said in my last question or last answer, I had to know that I literally tried everything, that I could walk away not having one regret. Like, well, if I would have stayed, maybe he would have changed this time, or maybe this outcome would have been different. I knew in my soul that it didn't matter what he did, what he promised me, that it wasn't changing, and that I had to come to terms with one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make for me and my family, and having the confidence and knowing and being confident in that decision that I had to walk away to change the next part of my story. And it was really difficult, but it was also one of the most liberating things I've ever done, and it has brought me so much freedom and joy and life and love after something that was so hard, because I didn't think that I could walk those steps. But you realize that once you take that first step, yes, it's dark and you don't see the light. But for me, what I went through is it's a tunnel. And at the end of it, you're going to see the light.
Yeah. And you detail this in your new book, The Next Chapter. How did writing this book, because I've written books, so I kind of see books as also helps you in transitioning to something new. In fact, like a lot of people do it as a way to transition as well. And this obviously going through what you have, the book helps you kind of bring all of that out. How did just writing the book help you kind of come to terms and move on to this next phase?
Yeah, it was very therapeutic. And it's also something that it was really cool to do, because I wrote it as like a memoir, like diary, like a year diary from the day that I signed divorce to a year post, and chronicling, the summer and fall and winter and all the motions. And I think the thing that I noticed the most is, as a writer, well, for me at least, it took, a couple of years to actually, from start to finish, with all the edits and stuff that we were doing. And I realized like through the process, the growth that I was actually doing while writing it, because I would go back to certain chapters and go, you know what, I was really angry there. And like, I'll leave a voice of that, but like that's not what I want this chapter to be about. I want it to be about, I want to show maybe that anger and that sadness, but I want to show, where, a year or two later, what it actually looks like now. So being able to go back and just soften things a little bit and go, man, like this book, because it was very much like about my ex, and then this book evolved to like the book is about me and trusting myself, not about trusting someone that you don't trust.
And I like that because again, this proves that you do live life without regrets, because you wanted to make sure that you wouldn't have regrets, not kind of talking about various things in the book or saying it in a specific way, because once it's published, right? It's harder to go back. Maybe you can do kind of a revision or a sequel or something, but you wanted to make sure that it captured everything and that you could look back on it and feel like you were kind of leaving that behind as kind of a milestone or a point in time in your life.
Yeah. And I mean, there was obviously tough chapters, even, reading it out loud the other week in the audio recording. It was like, they're hard memories to relive, but at the same time, when you can have the year after, the 2 years after going, you survived something that was really tough, you didn't think you'd get past. And the version that I am now versus the version that I started writing that book, I like so much better now than I did then, but I have so much compassion and love for that person that was just trying to figure it out.
What did you learn in your prior relationships that has prepared you for the one you're currently in? And what did you look for in him that you overlooked in previous ones?
Sure. So what I learned from the last one was I realized that I had so much work to do on myself. I think I got into that mode where I was, blaming others for how my life was turning out. But really what I learned was that like I had to do a lot of self-reflection and looking in the mirror going, okay, what was my part in this? Because I also played a big piece in it, in all of it, and all of my past stuff. And so really pinpointing, okay, what are the messages that I'm still believing that are toxic, that are not good for me, and that is going to continue keeping me down this road that I've walked down a million times. And what needs to change, because that road has not worked for the last 30 years. So I need to like reroute like my whole way of like living in life and how I did things and believe things, because how I talked to myself was the worst that anyone ever talked to. It was all me that was saying the negative things, but those were things that I picked up from a young, younger age. And then now in my new relationship, I've never experienced respect the way that like how my fiance respects and loves me now, but it's also because back then I didn't think I deserved respect. So I never demanded or asked for it or knew what it even looked like. So now it's like, I get to see something that I'm like, oh, wow, like this is what love and respect is. But it's also, I think, a reflection on myself going, yes, because you respect yourself and this is what you've always deserved to feel. And you just never allowed it to come in because you didn't think you deserved it.
I mean, it's very relatable. I mean, I'm guilty of it. A lot of people I know are guilty of going through the same cycle and never taking a step back to kind of examine why they keep choosing the same people to date or marry or whatnot. So, or just be friends with, right? In terms of overall relationships. So it's good that you were able to kind of take a step back and notice that, and then also see something kind of new that you appreciate. Mm-hmm. And now you value that. And, that's important to you and helps you grow that relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what's your best piece of career advice?
Follow your dreams. No, I mean, I think my best piece of career advice is don't put yourself in a box. So for a very long time, I have always said like, I don't want to, you can't put me in a box. I want to be, I get to be an actress. I'm going to be this, that, and the other and whatever. But I realized that I was the one putting myself in a box. I was the one that was telling myself, oh, I can't do that because of X, Y, and Z. And so I think when you can go, you can be more than just one thing. and you can also grow. And maybe, okay, you're not where you thought you can be. Well, don't stop there. Like, reroute yourself. Like, don't just live in the box that like you said you were going to be in.
That's a great point. I think we create our own limitations is what really you're saying, right? Whereas if you experiment, if you put yourself like you did, especially early in your career, put yourself in an uncomfortable position where you have no choice but to kind of figure things out and challenge yourself, that's where the growth is. And then you start to see yourself as more, aside from you being an actor and singer, you kind of continue to expand your entertainment horizons, right? And who knows, with a book too, right? So and who knows what's next. And so that's kind of the exciting part of life too for you.
Absolutely. Cause I'm like, I don't want, like, things are always changing and evolving, and you have to be ready to jump on that same train.
Absolutely. Well, that's great advice. And thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.